Hello, family. Welcome back to JFK Today, your direct link to all things politics, comedy, and culture. I am your host, Janae Butchercon, champ yapper and frequent nuisance in the activist and comedy worlds. Let's get dialed in. Just before we jump, JFK Today is a self-funded, self-produced show. We're on Patreon at Janaea FK. I am so grateful for all the support and for you just taking the time to listen. Okay, we got to hit it. We are slammed today. We've got the inauguration, the TikTok hoax, and ceasefires. Not to mention a few things smattered in between, but I want to be clear about something, right? This is our inauguration day too, in a way, right? Because what we can expect from the next 4 years is an endless list of fuck shit, right? ICE raids, attacks on immigrants, higher costs of food, more attacks on trans people, on black folks, on voter rights, right? The erosion of healthcare protections. We've got 90s era racism, rampant Islamophobia, more misogyny. The list goes on. But I'll tell you something. The way I see it, when that bitch steps into office today, so do we, right? The next 4 years, if we do this right, the next 4 years will be what we talk about for the rest of our lives, not because of what was done to us, but because of what we did, because of what we accomplished when the fascists came. This is where we spit bars and leave scars, yeah? I mean it. I mean it when I say I want these 4 years to be some of the most fun, audacious, brave years of our lives. I want us to make art that makes people weep and to laugh until our sides split open, right? Like, this is our time to write, to dream, to rage, to pain, and talk louder and more bravely than ever before. Yes, we're going to be tested, but we're going to win. I have the utmost faith in our ability to turn this pile of shit into a bed of roses, right? And what are roses without a few thorns? Anything beautiful, anything that we do is truly beautiful should hurt a little. That's what makes us appreciated so much. So this is our time. Here's our call to action, and the OGs know, right? It's time for us to come out. And I'm not talking to the LGBTQ plus 2 community, right? No, it's time for us to come out. Come out of the closet as liberators, as revolutionaries, as intersectional feminists. It's time for us to come out of the closet as artists with something to say, because there's only two types of art: the type that affirms the status quo and the kind that challenges and upends it, right? It's time for us to come out of the closet as change makers and advocates. It's time for us to come out of our fear and come into our power. It's gloves off. So buckle up, babies, because our villain era begins now. Hell yeah. Okay. All right. Back to the regular scheduled programming. You remember how we had a TikTok ban for like a single night? Yeah. And maybe not even that much, depending on what time zone you're in. But for that fleeting 12 hours or less, that window, it was really funny because TikTokers from like Canada, England, and Australia had their moment to shine. And it was just Black Brits feeling empowered to post their love of beans and toast, and then got ethered when Black Americans came back, right? But that was a good time. But the highlight of this whole fear around the TikTok ban has to be with Red Note. I've had a blast. We talked about it a couple episodes back, but my God, what a good time. Like, somebody posted a picture of Luigi Mangione, the handsomest man, right? And on Red Note, and wrote, raw, next question, which means, he could hit it raw, like move on. And there were variations of that. So Chinese folks were just like, what does this mean? Like, what do you mean raw, next question? And watching people like interpret that, hold on, I got to just play you this. This is too good, right?
公操我, which literally translates to husband.
So these are the Chinese versions that are the equivalent of raw, next question.
Number 2, 可爱想日, so cute, I wanna f***. Number 3, please f*** me till I die. 你他妈操死我算了. Number 4, I wanna f*** till you lose consciousness. 我想把你操到失去知觉. I think the first one should be the...
Sorry, that's art. This was one of the best moments of cultural exchange I've ever witnessed. And look, not for this. This was very good. This was very good. But it was fascinating to watch Like both America and China have been have filled our heads with propaganda about the other place. And it was fascinating to just watch the exchange of information, particularly with like young people. A bunch of middle schoolers are now literally running around the hallways speaking Mandarin in American schools. Now imagine what we could accomplish with an actual robust public education system. Wow. Wow. Anyway, more on the so-called ban in a bit. I just want to get into some quick hits before we get real deep into the stuff. But like, I just want to. Do you remember Walgreens and how they put up all the items behind glass, like locked glass and locked plastic? Well, get this. Walgreens CEO says that the anti-shoplifting strategy backfired, right? He said, when you lock things up, you don't see as many of them sell. Right? You don't sell as many of them. Oh, imagine that treating people like garbage might not actually be the best sales plan. That if I want deodorant, I might not want to stand there for 20 minutes waiting for somebody to unlock it so I can have it. Although the last time it happened, there were a bunch of men who were also waiting for deodorant in the men's section, and I got a great sense of what the average man likes, which is what I wanted. So that worked out one time. But what a simple bitch. There's going to be a lot of, I should have warned this. I think there might actually end up being a lot of swearing in this because, I don't have to double fist inhalers as much. I just need to have it on deck. So I'm just on fire right now. Speaking of, wow, I think I could segue that without the poor taste. I was going to say speaking of fires, but I don't want to be that off the cuff. As you know, several friends had their homes burned down. And it's been, I've covered it more in another episode about just what the media has done and how they've run with these particular stories of this, that, and the other. But there was something really important that I saw, right? Like LA has had a massive response. Like there were so many volunteers. I myself and several friends were like turned away. There's so many volunteers that people were turned away, but I've been doing very specific work with friends, but that's a beautiful thing. And it reminded me of something that David Graeber wrote in Debt, the First 5,000 Years. I think that's where it comes from, right? So this is a quote from that work, right? This is presumably also why in the immediate wake of great disasters like a flood, a blackout, or an economic collapse, people tend to behave the same way, reverting to a rough and ready communism. However briefly, hierarchies and markets and the like become luxuries that no one can afford. Anyone who has lived through such a moment can speak to their peculiar qualities, the way that strangers become sisters and brothers and human society itself seems to be reborn. This is important because it shows that we are not simply talking about cooperation. In fact, communism is the foundation of all human sociability. It is what makes society possible. And that is what I've witnessed. That's what I witnessed on protest lines. It's that unbelievable supernatural experience when people come together, pulled out by a similar cause, right? Whether that's angst or anguish. It's like I'm wont to say on the protest line, pain might have brought the thing that brought you here, but love is the thing that brings you back, right? Love is the thing that brings you back. And it'll take years to rebuild, for sure, for a lot of people. But I think if we just stay the course, right? We just keep helping, keep supporting each other, keep showing up. Keep showing up when the cameras are gone. Keep showing up when nobody cares anymore. Keep showing up when it's not the issue of the moment. These moments, right, those quiet moments of revolution when you can just be there for folks, there's nothing in the world like it. That's wealth. That's true wealth. I'm going to move really quickly now into David Lynch. All right, now listen. I knew that this was going to be a hard year for us, right? But between the Palisades and David Lynch, this year is also going to be very tough. It's going to be a blow for the bob and tote bag variety whites, 100%. Right? We're all in this together. We are all in this together. But jokes aside, David Lynch was just one of those really remarkable people, at least from a distance. I've never met him, but his penchant for just honoring the little miracles of life. It really reminds me of Mary Oliver, actually, like his view on life, right? This whole like focus on the whole, you might miss the donut kind of thing. But what I think might make you laugh a little, because it certainly did for me, is I'm a very dramatic person, and David Lynch is perhaps more dramatic than I am. Here is I found this clip of him discussing what it felt like to lose an idea. And it's truly one of the most dramatic things I've ever come across, where you just want to, and I should have given warnings for all the swearing that showed, but now it's like, this isn't swearing. This is like a content warning for suicide, but he's not being literal.
Many times.
So this is him talking about what it feels like to lose an idea. And I want you to know that not only do I feel this way, but if they don't have my flavor yogurt in the supermarket, I also feel this way. So let me just play this really beautiful thing by David. No, this isn't the beautiful thing. This is the funny thing. And then I'm going to read you something beautiful about David Lynch, because that perspective, his dogged commitment to optimism, or just valuing life for what it is, I think is something that we're going to really have to embody over these next 4 years.
Many times you forget them. And if you forget a good idea, you want to commit suicide. So you have to write them down.
Sorry, it's the drama. Yes, and it's not one interview. This is from several interviews. Here's another one.
If a person forgets an idea that they love, it's a horror. And it could lead to a real yearning to commit suicide.
Okay, this is another interview with him saying it again.
I write them down so I don't commit suicide later, having forgotten the idea.
Yeah.
And another one.
If you don't write it down, it could happen that the next day then you want to blow your brains out.
Sorry, okay. That's art. That's an exceptional human being. That's somebody who really gets it. I'm navigating this stupid phone update that here's this wonderful thing that David Lynch once said, right? People might bring up Vincent van Gogh as an example of a painter who did great work in spite of or because of his suffering. I like to think that Van Gogh would have been even more prolific and even greater if he wasn't so restricted by the things tormenting him. I don't think it was pain that made him so great. I think painting brought him whatever happiness he had. We have to, right, reframe the nobility in suffering for suffering's sake. And I know that a lot of us, I'm not talking about the suffering in the world, but the ones that we put ourselves through, the torment we put ourselves through, the agony and the angst that we put ourselves through for missed opportunities, right? For regrets, for all the time that we, quote, lost, for, that project or that idea that you didn't move on, right? This is a very human experience. No, we've got time, and you have time. And every day, that time is now. I don't care if you missed it today. You've got it tomorrow or you've got it later. This is our time. What I'm realizing, right? You've heard me yap about how these folks in the manosphere who are just running their mouths were really just the Bible losers, right? They weren't out there living their lives. They were just talking shit. We need a new class of a new brain trust, and we're going to do that together. And there's a few of you who reached out, to offer your help, and it's timely and it's needed, and I appreciate it so much. We're gonna be pumping shit up in the next couple of weeks, believe it. But now it's time to get into the actual news, because I've been yapping a lot. But it just felt, right? Today's not technically a work day, but it felt very important to remind you about how important you are in this moment and in this time, and you putting yourself through the ringer for everything that you haven't done yet. Stop it. Stop it. Whatever you were doing up to now was research, right? And you might be in an execution phase, you might not, but it was research. You are living a life. That is just as important as narrating it or, creating art from it. You got to have your research. Anyway, so the TikTok ban was a fucking hoax. It was an absolute hoax. This was just straight up Trump manipulation, and we should be furious, right? And more so because of how transparent it was, right? The Chinese owners of TikTok are attending Trump's inauguration, along with every billionaire, by the way, right? Zuckerberg, Bezos, all of them. We all know Musk is going to be there, right? But I started to notice certain things, like the sudden blaming of Biden for scuttling the sale deal. I'm like, have we forgotten that Trump signed the executive order that initiated the ban in the first place, right? In 2020, it was Trump that pushed and carried through the threat and activation of the ban. So this is a perfect example of what we can expect over the next 4 years, right? Of starting a fire so you can be the hero that puts it out. But luckily, they're fucking idiots. So it was just very transparent, but they are going to run with this regardless, right? And the thing that upsets me outside of the obvious ploy was that this had a serious impact on some people's mental health, right? Like, especially young people who are small business owners on the app. They were terrified for where they would go or what they would do. And I'm not talking about my friend who was like, in the middle of the night, she was like, what am I supposed to do with my eyes and my hands? But no, like, and it occurred to me that they truly think we're idiots. And they're treating us that way. This was the latest statement from TikTok. I know a lot of you know this, but let's really get into it, right? In agreement with our service providers, TikTok is in the process of restoring service. We thank President Trump for providing the necessary clarity and assurance to our service providers that they will face no penalties, providing TikTok to over 170 million Americans and allowing over 7 million small businesses to thrive. It's a strong stand for the First Amendment, like we know, right? This red herring language, where it comes from. It's a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship. There is no censorship. There is absolutely no fucking censorship, at least of the right-wing media. And that's really where that comes from. We know that there's censorship around certain criticisms of the government, certainly criticisms of Israel, right? But when it comes to right-wing media, there's absolutely zero censorship of it. There is absolutely zero. I looked, because y'all know I love to be right. I looked. It doesn't exist. It is a talking point, and it is a point of manipulation. So anyway, it goes on to say, we will work with President Trump on a long-term solution that keeps TikTok in the U.S. So what are our takeaways from this, right? What should we walk away from understanding? Every single major social media platform, right? So not Blue Sky, it's too small. Every major one is owned and operated by the right wing. That's what we need to understand from here on in. Right. And it makes no difference whether the owners are the radicals like Musk or the ring kissing kind. Rim job. Zuckerberg, right? So we know Zuckerberg that's Facebook, that's IG, that's Threads, that's WhatsApp. Musk owns Twitter, and TikTok is being maneuvered by the right. And we are guaranteed that from here on in, to extent it's already happening, and it's already been happening because the algos are they get higher engagement for rage bait, but the algos will prioritize right-wing content. And if you want to know how serious this is and how serious I am about this right now, right? The TikTok CEO, Xiaozi Chu, right, is at Showtime. It's Xiaozi Chu, Showtime on TikTok, right? He reposted a Charlie Kirk video. Charlie Kirk. Are you kidding me? This is an openly avowed racist, a white nationalist, a radical right cornball with the creepiest, most aggressive gums you will ever see in your motherfucking life, right? On his timeline. That's who he posted. So we are in one hell of a shitstorm. And, I'm going to tell you, we've got this... I found this video. She had it in her stories. There's a video of AOC where she's talking about the sort of dangers that we're in right now and what kinds of legislation that we need. So I'm just going to play this right quick.
Very. Additionally, the degree to which corporations surveil the American people without genuine consent and without real mechanisms for opting out should be illegal, point blank, period. And so many of us naturally said, The answer is not just playing endless whack-a-mole with apps. The answer is that we should have real privacy legislation in the United States, and
That's right.
we should help people own their information and have greater agency over their personal information.
So that right there, right? The logic behind the justification behind the TikTok ban was that we had data leaks and data breaches and that the Chinese government was using spyware, when realistically, the level of spyware and data mining that happens on the apps that we use here in America are astronomical. Like it's unbelievable and unbelievably sophisticated. And a lot of the time we don't know what our data is worth. And so we've got to make it worthwhile to us, right? So that was her refuting the logic behind the ban in the first place. This is her sort of talking about why things are rolling out the way that they are and how, just another voice to say how much our apps, our current social media ecosystem is in the pocket of right-wing nut jobs.
Trump in the notification is a choice.
She's talking about that TikTok statement I just read.
They are signaling that they are privately collaborating. They have agreed to privately collaborate with Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And for all of those concerns that people were saying that TikTok is going to be used as a propaganda tool by the Chinese, understand they're using it as a propaganda tool for the right. Now, I want you all to put all the pieces together, because what this effectively means is that every social media platform, mass social media platform in the United States has been taken over by the right wing.
Just let that sink in for a moment, right? Every social media platform, every major player has been taken over by the right wing.
With the exception of Blue Sky, but Blue Sky is still very small, relatively. So when I say put the pieces together, Elon Musk took over Twitter, and there's open reporting. It's pretty obvious as well that they have manipulated the algorithms. They've artificially manipulated the algorithms to boost right-wing content.
Fuckers.
On X and to amplify harassment. Then you have Meta. So you have Mark Zuckerberg, and I know we're on Instagram right now, saying that they're basically also bending the knee to Trump with their changes to fact checking, regardless on how effective that was in the first place.
So
it's an open signal.
So that's pretty much it, right? Like they are going to do whatever these billionaires need to do to ensure that their wealth keeps growing. And it's at the expense of our health, our safety, our security. You have RFK already talking about rolling back vaccine protections. This is going to be the fight of our lives. But there's something freeing in that as well. When you know, right, like they have such just a complete cover of power across the board. It will be impossible. Like, who are they going to blame? They have spent their entire careers blaming Democrats, blaming DEI, blaming this group and that group and this group. But when you have a complete consolidation of power, there's no one else to blame. You are the government. When Elon Musk talks about that, we are the media, I'm like, you are, nigga. I hope you're prepared. I really hope you're prepared for that. Because what is coming out of this, the ways in which everyday people's lives will not improve on any level, that is our best opportunity to push back on the nonsense. I do want to play one clip that matters here, right? Because with knowing, right? We love solutions or like actions to take, right? But it's really understanding the role that attention plays and why I've said that your voice is so essential, right? It is not, if you're anything like me, and I had a long, hard talk with myself, right? I went girl interrupted over this period of time. It is not my impulse to make content, and it needs to be, right? I've created a lot of checks and balances on not wanting to be like the voice, right? A lot of other people have other things to say that are important, but we've created a vacuum. And the wrong people are taking up all that space, and we have to elbow our way back in. So here's this real clip I'm going to play real brief before we talk about the ceasefire. Ezra Klein is talking to Chris Hayes, and they said something that I found to be really profound on the ways that they've won through attention and quantity, not quality, but quantity. So this is Ezra Klein talking to Chris Hayes.
Money is very powerful when there's not much attention. But Donald Trump doesn't control Republican primaries with money, controls them with attention. And I keep having to write about Musk, and I keep saying he's the richest man in the world, but that's actually not what matters about him right now. It's just how he managed to get the attention and become the character and the wielder of all this attention. And that's a changeover I think Trumpist Republicans have made and Democrats haven't.
It's not just Democrats who haven't, it's us, right? There is a way that we sort of take ourselves out of the running, that we throw our hands up in disgust and frustration, but this is a time. Every time some fuck shit goes down, we need to be loud. We need to be loud. And we need to be present.
Democrats are still thinking about money as the fundamental substance of politics, and the Trump Republican Party thinks about attention as a fundamental substance of politics.
I really like this theory. I think you're totally right to identify that they kind of, it's sort of a sliding scale between the two, which is to say politics that have the least attention, money matters the most.
Right.
So in a state rep race.
Yes.
Right? Money really matters, a state rep race, partly because no one's paying attention to who the state rep is. Local media's been gutted.
Money can buy their attention.
Money can buy their attention. So like you could put out glossy mailers. There's a lot you can do that, the further up you go from that to Senate to president, the more.
All right, he's talking too much. But these two lesbians are right? They are 100% right that what Trump, the manosphere, what they've understood is how to capture the attention of people simply by putting their opinions out there or by, resharing each other's work. And I was like, oh, they've created this network. And it wasn't with intention. No. But they understand attention and they understand it as an economy. So this was something that to me brought I was like, that reframe is so good. I was so furious that it wasn't my reframe. But I do like it. And I think it's something like, I'm sorry if, I was like, oh, but my mind is racing. I am fired up. Like I cannot explain to you how ready I am. It's just the fires here really brought home what is important and the need for us to keep fighting and to win, right? With that, I want to talk about the ceasefire deal, but before I jump into that, there's something that I wanted to play for you. It's been just a disgusting 15-month campaign of some of the most brutal, horrific actions that human beings could take against other human beings in Israel's genocidal agenda against Palestinians. And a lot of us might run the risk of throwing our hands up and saying, well, it's too little too late, so what? And so I thought, let me play this video of Palestinian children celebrating. I just gave you a little foreshadow there when they heard the ceasefire deal was announced. If that doesn't make you smile, here's a little bit more. So whatever cynicism that we have, that we feel, right, having fought here and lost in a major way in our fight, the winning was in the fighting. And it meant the world to those children. Not only did this happen, but that people cared. And don't ever minimize that because countries do horrific things. 15-month, one of the most brutal, horrific campaigns you can imagine. 47,000 Palestinians were murdered along the coastal strip. Once the ceasefire was announced and put into effect on Sunday, Hamas immediately released 3 hostages. Israel is set to release 90 Palestinian prisoners. Of course, there was a delay that Israel used that time to do an airstrike and kill 13 more Palestinian people. As the fighting has ceased, hundreds of aid trucks are now queued to enter Gaza to deliver supplies to its 2.3 million residents, 90% of whom have been displaced by conflict, multiple times over, right? So I hardly know what to say about it beyond the fact that I am so grateful for the hope that Palestinians have carried, for the fight, for the grit. So grateful that Palestinians are alive. Right? Viva, viva Palestina. And I'm gutted and I'm angry and I will never, ever forget. I will never forget the role AIPAC played in manipulating Congress towards the genocidal agenda of Israel. I will never forget the majesty and power of Palestinians in the face of absolute horror. I will never forget what it felt like to see tens of millions of people march for Palestinian freedom around the world, nor how that mass mobilization was not enough to force our governments to action. I will never forget the need to continue fighting. And I will never forget that the only true justice in the world is life and quality of life. And that's all there is to it. In the last episode, I believe, we talked about what 21st century models of organizing look like and these lobby groups and the ways that they are shaping in ways we can't even begin to comprehend. Our experience of the world, of each other, of society, our access to resources, the Palisades fire, right? The fire that spread to Eaton and incinerated all of the Palisades and so much of Altadena that impacted Black and brown families in a way that is just unimaginable. Right? Poor families. The real estate lobby, CIBA, right? The California Industry for Building Association, they built land on high wildfire. They built homes on high wildfire prone areas and cut corners on safety precautions. And we have no means of holding them accountable. They are responsible. The way that AIPAC is responsible for running out Black congressional leaders that have a political agenda that matters. It's less important to me that they're Black than it is their agenda. Anybody who criticized Israel's attack against Palestinians, AIPAC went after. And they can do so. They buy elections. And go ahead and check that episode out if you want to know more what I'm talking about. But as we round out the end, all right, this is a bit of a roller coaster, but I thought, hey, what the fuck? Why not? I want to leave us with this. It's healthy to be a little insane right now. Don't fight it. Don't fight it. Lean into it just enough to keep you laughing, just enough to stay a little mad, just enough to see the light at the end of this, bullshit, this farce of an administration. Remember that the harder we work to avoid things, the harder our lives become. This is our time to step out of our fear and into our power. Now I'm going to hit that voice note. Where's the VMs? Let's hit that voice note. What do we got today?
Hey, Future. My question is, with all of the wildfires happening in California and Trump coming into office in 2 weeks, do you think he's going to punish Californians for not voting for him or wanting to dissent from his government? Or do you think he's going to activate disaster relief federally?
That is a great question. I think that this administration will take every chance and every opportunity it has and will go above and beyond to create opportunities to attack anything and anyone that doesn't support its unholy agenda. But they're thin-skinned and they're unimpressive. And I think it's always important to remember that. Why don't we listen to Musk talk for 5 seconds just to really illustrate the point?
This victory is the start, really. What matters going forward is to actually make significant changes.
Like, I'm not losing to that. Are you? I don't fucking think so. So with California, with Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass, like I said, it is so important, right, that we have that we're critical of our government. But when we start repeating right-wing talking points, right, it's not like they are using this opportunity to attack people who would see our rights protected. And it's not all the rights that we need. It's not all the rights that we deserve. But this is a sanctuary state, right, for migrants. This is a state that is committed to protections for trans rights. It's a state where we have some ground to stand on. And the harder that we go, it's not, and you know, I hear the leftists, oh, you're letting them off the hook. No. Go ahead and listen to 101. I'm not letting them off the hook. This is about understanding who's casting the fucking line. This is where we need to be. Our power maps need to be, and our power analysis needs to be so much smarter when we're talking about what 21st century models look like. The old ways are not working. That's what we have to be honest about. But we keep what does work. We keep what's necessary, and we expand out and we grow and we learn. I refuse to lose to a bunch of losers, 100%. And so, yes, I think that California is going to get hammered over the next 4 years because Newsom is Donald Trump's biggest threat. It's Newsom's time up next. He's up next, and Trump knows that. So I think this is a moment for us to be very, very smart about how we criticize. Because I'm going to be really clear now, end here. The way that we've dunked on Democrats for this whole TikTok thing, and I've seen a bunch of smart lefties do it too, right? They've been like, oh, well, this is such a loss, missed opportunity for the Democrats with this TikTok ban. I can't believe they let it happen. I'm all good when we dunk on Dems, right? We have every right to criticize, and we have every right and reason to criticize the Democrats and their leadership, especially the old guard. They fucking suck, right? But we're literally playing into the Trump-Musk agenda when we routinely repeat their talking points. I've seen an innumerable amount of smart folks talking about how the Dems shit the bed on TikTok, but like I truly don't understand the logic there. The bill was introduced by Republicans and passed on a bipartisan basis with a veto-proof majority. They didn't drop the ball on this, right? Like if you want to clobber the dummies the dummy Dems who did vote for the bill in the first place, hell yes. But the idea that there was a win here, an opportunity missed, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. That is a Republican talking point. Do I believe that they should have come out earlier and said this is a son, all the other stuff, Radon Chung? Absolutely. But a shit the bed? No. And this is the thing, like, for all the ways that we need to push the Democrats towards new leadership, we can't fight two wars, right? We need to consolidate our power and get clear on what our actual non-negotiables are and our talking points. And we need to hammer the right with every fucking thing that we've got. This is about coalition building. And those things are always about temporary alliances. That's it. That's where we are. That's how we win. And I promise you, every time that we choose to stay in the ring, we do. We win. We throw punches. We win. Right? We don't need to live in the afterlives of the choices of Democrats. No, we are making our own choices this year. Gloves off, babies. Okay, I'm yapping. This sounds like a good time to hit that outro music. All right. I just want to say thank you so much for listening to JFK Today. It means the world to me. The show really is a labor of love. New episodes are dropping all the days of the week. We're available everywhere podcasts are. We are on Patreon, so if you feel free to support the show as best you can. We're at patreon.com/JanaeFK. Don't forget, I want to hear from you. Drop your voice note questions, jfktodaysshow@gmail.com. Shout out to the JFK team. And shout out to you, the listeners, that make it all possible. Love you.